Hi, everybody. I'm honored and privileged to be here today with our friend Ernie Ramos of Advanced Appraisals Associates in Mokina, Illinois. Hi, Ernie.
Hey, how you doing, Gwen?
Good. So you not only have a location in Mokina, I also understand you have a location in Oak Forest. Is that true?
Yeah, we have an address in Oak Forest.
Yeah, very cool. Today we want to talk about real estate and appraisals because I think it's important for people to understand that process, especially when they're going through a divorce. But tell us a little bit about it. Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? What kind of shifts have you seen over the last year?
In the residential space, it's definitely a seller's market. We're seeing a lot of over asking price bids and multiple offers in a day. Most of it, in my opinion and my interpretation, is due to the rates dropping when COVID started. A lot of property owners probably not in a position to list their house for sale during COVID, or not wanting a lot of foot traffic in their house during COVID.
Sure.
It kind of only makes sense. And then the low rates drive this demand up for housing when there's not a lot of housing being listed and when the money's really cheap. So, the only few houses that these people have to choose from, they seem to be jumping on them. It's kind of a pent up demand a little bit, in my opinion, but it's happening, in most markets in a crazy way.
That's interesting. And it has been going on for a while now, right?
Yes. I think they dropped the rates right around when COVID started 11 months ago. And it's, been pretty constant. I mean, there might've been a month or two when everybody was so unsure about COVID, but the minute anybody was doing anything, it seems to be strong since then.
Wow, very interesting. We obviously, in the nature of a divorce, you get a lot of people who want to get an appraisal. And, the sale of that property is, most of the time, a very large asset in each of the cases. Now, you generally are going to do an appraisal when there's going to be a buyout. Wouldn't that be true?
Often.
Okay.
Yeah, we often do it, if there's a buyout, or if they're trying to make a decision on if one wants to keep it or the other to, one wants to buy the other one out or not. Sometimes it's decision making to see if they should put it up or buy the other one out. If one can afford to stay, we hear a lot.
Got it. And, that's true of a lot of people. They're just trying to make those decisions. So do you ever have any experiences where, one spouse wants to stay in the house, so they want to have the lowest price possible. So when you're out there to do the appraisal, they may try to sway you.
Yeah, very often. Yeah, very often. We get pulled in a lot of directions. We hear all the stories. Sometimes they let us know the whole story of why they're getting divorced and everything. Right. You just kind of have to try and be neutral and listen and just kind of be their friend through it all and just be understanding. You do get pulled in different directions. Sometimes they're trying to influence you by telling you how many repairs need to be made or haven't been made, or they're boasting the updates in a way that's a little exaggerated, something of that nature. Just someone's always, wants the value in a certain direction, and we just have to, be that neutral party all the time and just try and block all that out and let the market tell us what the answer is, without letting everybody else's emotion influence you too,
Exactly. And an appraisal is really an objective measuring tool. It's not really subject to much subjective interpretation except for maybe adjustments. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, the way we do it, we prove our adjustments in some statistical manner in most ways. Not all appraisers do, and the practice before the technology that I have available to me isn't always to. But the market determines it. I mean, someone can choose different comparables, and and it is totally an objective opinion. But hopefully, what we determine is backed up with solid facts, and it gives them enough education to make whatever decision they need to, and whether selling or buying, doesn't have to be based on the number that I say, but hopefully something near that.
Sure. And I think that's also true that people are trying to either, they're boasting about how good it is, or they have just a false sense of what their improvements did to their property. I think that's often the case.
Yeah, right. Or, we often say, there's a lot of properties that get over improved, and we often just kind of say, hey, cost is not value. Someone over improves their basement, or they, and add an in-ground pool in the climate that we have. often, if it doesn't get enjoyed, they don't really recoup their investment. So sometimes those factors, don't influence as much as people would hope,
Right. And
even
then
in this market, even in this hot market,
which is very interesting. Yeah. And then I also think sometimes, they have it's that unrealistic expectation, or they just, they want to go and get a market analysis and they really don't want to do an appraisal. So tell us the difference, and why would somebody want to do an actual appraisal versus looking at a market analysis?
Sure. Yeah, we get that very often. Like, hey, we had a CMA done, which is a comparative market analysis that a realtor typically does. And now we need an appraisal, or the judge didn't accept the CMA, the comparative market analysis that we
Right.
submitted. And some people just don't understand the difference. The difference is, a comparative market analysis is done by a realtor, and realtors are not allowed, or they're not certified to determine market value, which that is necessary to determine in a case in some situations. But what they typically do is try and pick competing properties that would be comparable to yours. And in our MLS software, they have a real simplistic way to choose these and compare it to your property, mostly based on pictures and characteristics and what either records that the realtors report typically, and the records that realtors report is typically very different than what county records may be. Realtors often, if you're looking at realtor data on, in the MLS or the listings that they're comparing, they don't have any regulations on how they report building area, or sometimes even bedrooms above and below grade. Sometimes they don't post or report the square footage of the property, even though it's available with the county records, or sometimes they include the basement and they kind of inflate the square footage, or sometimes they honestly just make it up. We actually physically measure the properties and physically analyze any differences that the realtors may report to what is factual, whether it's records, history, things like that. And those characteristics, such as square footage, specifically, if those aren't correct, the comparative market analysis is basically useless, because they're relying on someone else's reporting that's not a fact, and it might be half correct versus 100% correct. So it really can skew what is reasonable. If it's a cookie cutter property, if it's just a simplistic ranch in a cookie cutter subdivision, those comparative market analysis can be great tools. But if it's something atypical, an appraisal is probably most of the time needed, or we would suggest it, so at least every aspect is analyzed. And often in those two, condition always isn't factored in. They're not really breaking it down or making adjustments to things that would be supportive. So what we do is really analyze the condition and really analyze and make sure that the characteristics are correct that we're comparing, and not just someone's reportings. So that's how those facts help and indicate probability with value, and really would help homeowners throughout that kind of situation.
Sure. An appraisal can be also certified as an opinion witness for purposes of trial, so that your testimony is going to be based upon, your accreditation, your licensing, and the standards that you use within the community. So also, it's got a much different level of usefulness for purposes of court. And I think that also has to be taken into consideration.
Sure.
Now people have residential properties, but sometimes, there might be a marital interest in a business, and there might be commercial property with that, or rental property. So these are functions that you do as well, correct?
Yes, we see that often as well. And typically, if it's a business, one of the the marital partners is running that business often, so they usually have to buy the other one out. So we don't value businesses at all. It's strictly real estate, but a lot of times that they have to buy the other partner out, in those situations, in rental properties as well. Those can get a little hairy, but usually one spouse doesn't really want anything to do with the rental aspect. So usually they just have to buy the other one out.
Right. They have to buy the other one out, and it can become a little complicated with the taxes and capital gains on those issues. But getting a certified appraisal at that point is really important, and especially if there's rental property, because the rental income is also a factor, correct? As to the
Yes,
appraised
for
value.
sure. Yeah. for rental property, or those types of investment income property, definitely the income is 80% of the valuation, if not all of it. So
Sure.
definitely.
And it'll be interesting to see, especially with rental properties now where tenants aren't subject to eviction proceedings right now, and maybe that rental income hasn't been there. So valuing those properties in this post-COVID, or hopefully soon to be post-COVID age, at least for a while, is going to be interesting because
Yeah,
income might be different.
we do a lot of multifamilies as well. We do a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 units.
Yes.
And we haven't seen the issues yet. I foresee them coming.
Right.
I don't know when it will be. I have not seen or spoke, because I speak to a lot of landlords, and they have not had a lot of non-paying tenants in the situation, which I would expect.
Right.
But I can imagine it in the future.
Yeah, that it may be
starts to
coming, and
catch
it's
up.
right.
Right.
It's a looming issue that's out there. So if you do own property, whether it be commercial property or if it's investment property, it also has to be appraised, and you really have to get the true value. And you don't understand that income really, like you said, 80% of the value is really can be rooted in that investment.
Yes, for sure.
Correct, and the rental income coming in. Now, I understand also that a lot of times, our clients are using the appraisals for purposes of estate planning purposes. So can you explain your role with regard to that?
Yes, we do a lot of state work. I wouldn't say that a lot of it comes in for estate planning, but we definitely can help in those situations, when someone's planning an estate to value that asset, beforehand in that planning process. Most of our estate work is, after someone has passed. And
Sure, for the probate proceedings.
exactly. Or, they're trying to settle the estate, or they're trying to sell. They're already in a position, and they're trying to sell it, or, delegate things to the heirs. We had one today with 18 heirs.
Wow.
So
So a lot of conflict there potentially,
right,
but hopefully they
exactly.
get it done. That's the way it
Right.
comes.
Right, exactly.
So, you can use it with estate planning matters. You can use it with probate as well. And I also wanted to ask you, the IRS looking for a past value. Sometimes you get into those situations, or sometimes, you're looking for a value that may have been as of the date somebody got married, or when they transferred the property from non-marital to marital. Can you comment about the possibility of doing that, a retroactive value?
Yes, honestly, a big part of my early on training was doing retrospective appraisals and in assessment appeal to estate work, and we do a lot of retrospective appraisals currently. A lot of our estate work too is date of death appraisals for accounting IRS purposes.
Yes.
And sometimes it's very recent. Sometimes it's near tax time, and the death was very recent, and sometimes it's a year or two in the rears, to where now they need to figure out what that property was worth for tax purposes as of that date of death. And
Right.
a lot, I would say a good 75% of the estate work we do is retrospective date of death appraisals.
It's interesting, and I don't think that people think that that's an available mechanism, but it is important to be there as well. I consider the appraisal portion of the cases that we work on just part of the team of people. At Sterk Family Law, we believe in a holistic approach to divorce, that it's not just about the legal part of it, and clearly the legal part's an important part, but it's also bringing in those other pieces in order to get your case to a conclusion. And that includes an appraiser. It may include an accountant. It may include a business valuator. There's a lot of different tools that have to be put together on the financial side. There's also a lot of tools that have to be put together when it comes to your children and your family and moving on, like counselors and other aspects. So we sure appreciate you and being part of our resource center, because we can share a resource to say to somebody, look, you have to come to the table and understand that everybody is a piece of the puzzle, and that we're putting together a life plan and a puzzle. And when we get it all together, then you can make good, informed decisions. Do you have any comments to people about that? Because I think that sometimes we don't consider, we look at it through our tunnel vision in terms of what we're doing, rather than in a holistic approach.
No, I think it's great that you can actually, put all those pieces together. It's probably something that not many other firms can really do, but it's definitely helps anybody feeling comfortable going through any of those really tough life situations like that you guys represent. So, whether it's me, like you said, or an accountant or a business valuator, and ultimately you guys, the attorneys, it's good to have that network
Right.
of individuals to help anybody through those tough, parts of life.
Right. Well, if you're out there today and you're listening and you know that you're going to have a home sale or you got commercial property or investment property, this has to be looked at and the appraisal is part of it. It's better, in my opinion, to bite the bullet and to know the value early on than to wait. So I do encourage anybody listening here, call Ernie. We're part of it. We can give you a referral for his work, and we just want to work collaboratively together because remember, it is a more objective standard and it's a way for you to move on with your lives. If you have any questions, Kelly will post our information, both our information and advanced appraisal. And certainly, Ernie, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it too.
Thank you.
Thank you.